Okay, welcome everybody. You can come in and find your seats. I believe the Gauteng guys are true to Gauteng form and are ready, prompt and on time and ready to go. Good. Well, welcome. It's fantastic to have you all here for this KZN/Gauteng networking event. So we thought we would, technical abilities are with us today. We'll have a little kind of a quick hello from both sides. So Natalie, are you okay for the Gauteng guys? Can the Gauteng guys unmute and at least just say hello, and we can. Natalie will just show her screen and we'll see the Gauteng crowd. Sounding very quiet. So. Is it? They're not there. Okay.
Okay, I'm checking.
You got it. Okay. We started without you. I was kind enough to say that you were prompted on time, and then we found out that you weren't even there, Gauteng. So I take that back. But we are trying to do this. We've done it before. A little bit of a connection between in person and online. So we've got the privilege of having the speaker in person, but the Gauteng crowd are also joining together at TWR offices there. So Gauteng guys, welcome to you. It's so good to have you with us. And would you unmute C4 and just let your Gauteng guys give a big hello and wave, and we'll see them on Natalie's screen.
Can you hear us? This is us. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Well, it's great to be able to do this, and we hope that you guys are hearing us nice and loud and clear. And again, welcome to all the KZN peeps. We're in for a wonderful morning, and we've heard from Cape Town that they had a fantastic networking event with Matt as well. So we really are in for a treat. My name's Graham Schnell. I'm the CEO of Focus on the Family, but also wearing the hat of chairman of the ACM. We really are incredibly privileged to have Matt with us to speak into a very pertinent topic this morning, but also with a hint of some tools and some advice on any budding authors among us as well. So we're looking forward to that. So Matt, just as by way of introduction, is an international speaker, author, and broadcaster. He's spoken in 30 countries to more than 1 million people. He's written 11 books, and he writes for the Times newspaper. He's the CEO and president of Neighbor International, whose vision is to see communities, cities, and nations transformed by the life and love of Jesus. Can't think of a better mission statement than that. He's also the founder of Relationology International, through which he works as a keynote speaker, helping clients increase performance and growth through the power of relationships. He's a sought-after communicator who helps leaders, teams, and entire businesses create relational cultures that foster growth, innovation, and opportunity. Practicing what he preaches, Matt runs a philanthropic foundation that ignites positive change in communities across the world. For this, Matt has received commendations from successive prime ministers and been invited to co-chair the 10 Downing Street Community Advisory Group. So that's pretty incredible. He writes regularly for the Times and lives in London with his wife Esther and their 3 children. Matt, it's really a privilege to have you. We're really looking forward to what you have to say this morning.
Thank you for your introduction. I'm not sure who you were introducing, but I'm that bird. It's great to be with you in person here, but also greetings to my friends in Gauteng. It's great to know that you're online, and I hope they'll be aware of you asking questions as well. So I wanted to begin this morning by simply telling you my story of how I or how Jesus found me and I found him. And then I wanted to tell you 2 stories, really, that would have never have happened had it not been for Christ in my life. Would that be okay? You're not nodding? Is that, oh. Is that okay? Yeah, great, excellent. I actually grew up in a very religious home. I always say both of my parents were very religious. My mum was a religious churchgoer, and every Sunday without fail, she would walk up the street and go to our local church. My father was also very religious. Every Sunday morning without fail, he would get his bucket and sponge out and he'd go out the front door and wash his car. Now, I was always a little resentful that I was forced to follow my mum's religion rather than my dad's, because frankly, I'd have rather washed the car with my dad than go to church with my mum. But there we go. But at the age of 19 years old, I met some young people who were kind of normal. But why I hesitate to say normal is that they were mad about Jesus. And whilst I've been to church for many years, it was through these young people and their passion for Jesus that I thought, I'm going to give this a go. And so ever since, I've been giving it a go. Ever since, I've been trying every day to follow Jesus, day in, day out, minute in, minute out. Sometimes I think I do okay, and sometimes I do appallingly. But my heart and desire is to follow him, honour him, and live my life for him. Now, I say that to give a little bit of context to who I am. As you know, I live in London. I run a global NGO called Neighbour. I'll come back to that later. I run a global partnership coaching business people to achieve goals. And I also dabble in some books. And it's there that I wanted to tell my first of 2 stories, if I may. I remember sitting with a friend called Mike, and he has one of those relaxed offices, not with a board table and formal chairs, but he's got a couple of sofas and a low coffee table. And as we sat around on these sofas chatting one day, he was asking me about what I was doing. I told him I was about to speak at a conference for 5 days, and I began to explain to him the subjects that I was speaking on at the conference. And he took a look at me and he said, Matt, he said, that is a book. I thought, oh, really? And then he picked up his telephone and called a number and said, David, he said, I've got a young man here. It was a few years ago. Not that many, though. So I've got a young man here called Matt Bird. He's got a book in it. Will you publish it? I was sat there gobsmacked, but not as shocked as the moment he passed me the telephone and said, here we go. I nearly wet myself. But that's how I came to publish my first book. And since then, I've authored and published 16 of my own books, and now write for the Times newspaper and other such publications as a result of that. And those books have created enormous opportunities in my life. And so that may sound all wonderful and great, but what I wanted to do was really tell you a little bit of the backstory. Because you may have never written a book and you hear that story and you think, wow, I could never do that. But I want to tell you how I could never do it. So when I was at school, I didn't do well. That's a British understatement. Are you familiar with British understatements? I really did not do well. I was in remedial maths classes, remedial English classes. It was not a success story. And I left school actually believing I was stupid, because that's what my teachers told me I was. Later on, I remember actually at school asking to do computer studies. And they said, no, you can't do computer studies because your English isn't good enough. Later in life, I was actually diagnosed as being dyslexic. And I look back now and think, was that one of the reasons why I struggled at school? Because they had no way of diagnosing that or understanding that and adapting accordingly. I just had to go through the sausage machine in one direction and come out one shape and one size, or I was a failure. And so I tell you that as the context in which I've become an author. Because you'd think, I'm not a literary person. I'm not a literary writer. I write. Yeah. But the really interesting thing for me is that now, I've not only published 16 books, but actually other people come to me and ask my advice about how to write books. And I can only put it down to Jesus. I mean, how can somebody in remedial English, diagnosed dyslexic, author books, let alone have other people come to them and ask me for help? And I've always helped people. And this time last year, I thought this is ridiculous. So many people ask me for help with books. I've got an idea. What do I do next? Or I've no idea where to start. I thought, why don't I run a course? So last January, I began my first writing my book course. And 10 people signed up and trusted me, some South African friends, some English friends, an Australian friend, and trusted me to help them step by step to write a book. Now, because I've done a few books, I've created my own methodology, my own step-by-step process that I know works for me. And over 100 days, I coached these people to write the manuscript of their book. And they did it in the 100 days by using this step-by-step process. I just said, trust me, I've done it before, this works for me, and it'll probably work for you. And it did. I'm now on my 5th cohort of 10 people. 50 people now. And I've got another group starting on the 2nd of March. So it'll be my 6th cohort of 10 people that I'm coaching to become published authors. I actually had a very tearful moment. I'm not an overly emotional person, just to put it in context. I had a very emotional moment 2 days ago. I was hosting an event in Durban, and there was about 25 people in the room. And I was interviewing one of the people who did my writing my book course last year. And I was interviewing them about why they wanted to write a book and what obstacles they felt. Have you finished the book? And then she turned to me and she presented me with a signed copy of the published book that I coached her to write. And she was in tears. I was in tears. It was one of those moments in life that I'll never forget. And since, and it was just amazing. But I get satisfaction, yes, about publishing a new book. And I did 7 during the pandemic, and I'm limiting myself to 1 this year. But I get most satisfaction and fulfillment now about helping other people who have an idea to write the book that's in them. Not just to write it, but now we are partnering with people to publish their books for them. Because I publish my own books through Amazon. And people say to me, Matt, can we publish it how you publish it? So we're actually publishing this year 2 books a month. So I tell you this story for 2 reasons. One is I want to honor Jesus in this, because I really, really, really am not author material. Or I thought I was not author material. And I think in many ways we all have our own. We put self-limitations, not just on ourselves, but on what we think Jesus can do in our lives. Because there is nothing that he cannot do through us. If you can take me and make me an author, he can take you and make you anything he wants. And so often we have these self-limitations that we play in our heads, this little script of we're not good enough, or we're this, or we're that, or that. And looking at you into your eyes, I look in the mirror, we all have them. We think, I can't do that because. And particularly for me, I've found it difficult in life when things go wrong, don't work out as I would like. You often that little message comes back to me, or Matt, perhaps it's because you're. So I really want to encourage you this morning, your faith in Jesus, to believe that in him, anything is possible. and to turn down the volume, or even just to switch off that little voice in your head that says, you're not good enough, or you're this, or you're that, or you're the other. Too old, too young, too this, too that. We all have them, and it's nonsense. But also I wanted to say to you, as Mike said to me that day, you've got a book in you. Got a book in you. Got a book in you. And actually, it's already written. It's just a matter of getting it out onto paper. And if you know how, I believe that each and every one of you, if you had the heart's desire, could become a published author. If you want to know how I might be able to help you do that, I'd love to invite you to go to my little website. Well, it's not a website, it's just a little thing that points you in different directions. But if you write down simply coffeewithmatt.com. Can't write it down, you can probably remember it, which is why I have that domain, coffeewithmatt.com. And if you go there, one of the links says, I'd like to become an author. And you can click that button and take you through it, tell you about the course and everything. There's also a button there where it says, read Matt's books. You can go onto Amazon and read any of the 16 books I've written there. I know it's expensive to order books, but they're all on Kindle. So you can download them, access any of them. And some other stuff that I do. But the second story I wanted to tell you this morning, and again, I'm telling these stories because I want to point to Jesus and his ability to do things in our lives that we never thought we could do. Back in 2010, I was listening online to our Prime Minister of the day, and the UK's had quite a few Prime Ministers in the last decade or so, as you're aware. It doesn't matter which one it was particularly, but I was listening to one of them online, Prime Minister of the day. And he was articulating a vision for society. Now, you don't very often get Prime Ministers articulating a vision for society. But this guy was, and it inspired me. And as I listened to him, I thought, wow, I believe the church, I believe in a vision for the church in society. I believe in rediscovering the role of the church in community. Church not as just as private members club, because a lot of churches are private members clubs, aren't they? You join, you pay your tithe, a subscription fee, however you want to phrase it, you pay your tithe, and in return you expect good Bible teaching, good praise and worship, good prayer, and if you've got kids, great youth and children's work. Now, if at any point the private members club disappoints you, what happens is, the first thing you do is withdraw your subscription, so your tithe. And then your eyes start wandering. And you think, there must be a perfect church somewhere. And I'm going to join it and spoil it. No, there must be a better. And you start thinking, there must be a better private members club. It's going to give me exactly what I want. And you end up moving, and then you think, oh, okay, this one's a good one, and you commit your subscription fees or your tithe. So often we behave like that, I include myself. But actually, the role of the church is not as a private members club. The role of the church is the agent of mission and transformation in society. Because the Bible tells us categorically, black and white, no shadow of a doubt, faith without action is dead. So it's not enough to have great preaching, and I love preaching. It's not enough to have great worship. I love worship. It's not enough to have great prayer. That is not sufficient. It could be just religion, unless it's demonstrated in tangible, practical action in the community. And that's what makes faith real. That's what makes faith real. And that is the mission of the church. If we're insular, inward looking after ourselves, making sure that we get all our benefits for our subscription fees, we've kind of missed the plot and missed the point. And so that's what inspired me, the Prime Minister's talk and that thinking. And I thought, maybe what the church needs is a friend that will help her become more effective in engaging the community. Perhaps the church needs someone who can find great examples of community engagement from one community and tell another church in another community, oh, why didn't you try this? This is really effective there. It might be effective here. And so Neighbour, as it's now known, was born. It used to be Cinnamon Network many years ago, but now it's Neighbour. Neighbour was born. And we began to develop a toolkit of resources that help local churches be effective in engaging in their communities. And sometimes people say to me, Matt, why Neighbour? And it's spelled unusually, it's spelled N-A-Y-B-A. And I always say, simply because Jesus said, love your neighbour, and that's what we help the church do. It's as simple as that. We are a servant of the church. And why spell neighbour like that? Because that's not the usual spelling. Well, the thing is, we work in countries that spell neighbour with and without a U, in America and the UK. So we didn't want to choose between spellings. So we actually went to a country in Central America. And in their Bible, in the language of Belize Creole, neighbour is spelt, when it says, Jesus said, love your neighbour, it's spelled N-A-Y-B-A. I've just discovered this week, actually, in the Western Cape, in Cops, there's a kind of a pidgin English equivalent language there, and they talk about neighbour as N-A-Y-B-A. So that's why we're called Neighbour. And we're aiming at three kind of big things at the moment. One is that in the next 3 years, we're going to launch a global index about the financial value of what churches give to their communities every year. Before we even talk about the church doing anything more, why don't we stop and take stock and work out what it's already doing? And we want to publish a global index about the contribution of churches to their communities. We have a little tool called the Neighbour Impact Audit, and it helps churches in a local government area of all denominations and colours and flavours work together to measure their collective impact in the community. And we've helped over 100 of these impact audits happen around the world already. This year there'll be another 6 in Australia, New Zealand starting with a couple, Singapore's going to do an impact audit. We're doing 2 in South Africa, one in Stellenbosch, one in Soweto. We'll pick 2 more contrasting places. We're doing them in Netherlands, Denmark, the UK, the United States. So from this collection of data, which is primarily for use at a local level, to give the church confidence in itself about what it's already doing, but also to give confidence in civic society about the value and the contribution of the church. As well as that, actually step back and say, this is going to be part of a global picture, a global index of the value of church in society. We've never had such a thing. I think this time. Second thing we're doing is we're going to publish a book, or possibly books, in the next 2 to 3 years. And one of the things that Neighbour does is we find brilliant community projects led by local churches, always led by local churches, that are effective and impactful. And we take the project and we say, would you be willing to package up all that you do and give it away to another church so they can do it? I was with a project yesterday called Project Exodus that equips churches and trains churches to work with people to free them from addictions. Here in South Africa, it's been replicated by dozens of churches. There's a lovely project in Australia that helps reduce domestic violence. Yes, reduce domestic violence, not working with victims, although that's amazing. But actually, the only way we're going to stop domestic violence is to work with perpetrators. So this church engages with perpetrators by saying, if you feel your anger is beginning to damage your relationships, engage with us. So they slightly destigmatize it and engage with people on a level of anger management to get them engaged, men and women, different groups, but men and women. And we've seen that project replicate in more than 30 churches around Australia. And I'm telling the story around the world now. Because actually, in no country I've ever been in have I seen a church-sized solution that works addressing domestic violence and reducing domestic violence. So in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to publish a book. And this book is going to tell the story of Project Exodus and Circuit Breaker, the domestic violence project, and 50 other projects to inspire churches about what it's possible to do, to tell the story of some of the changed lives, and to give them a little recipe. If you want to do this in your community, here's the recipe and here's what you can do next to start it. We're going to publish it on Amazon, on Kindle. It's going to be free of charge. So we just want to give it away. We want people to be inspired. We're also going to publish it in a lovely hardback version, so you can put it on the coffee table in your home, or in your office, or in your church reception, so people can read the stories and change lives. Because we believe that the local church is God's plan A for transforming the world. The local church is the agent of the kingdom of God. And we have all sorts of stuff going on, finding these projects and supporting these projects to come through. So that's the second big milestone we're aiming for. And the third one, it's only come about in the last year. You know, the pandemic has been very painful for us all, hasn't it? But it's also taught us some things and enabled some things to happen that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And one of the things that it triggered in my heart initially was this, that we've always faced worklessness and economic hardship. But actually, as we emerge from the pandemic, there would be less jobs to go to, not more. And it's not enough to prepare people for employment if there aren't employment opportunities. And I've always lived my life with the belief that if the door of opportunity isn't knocking, you make a door. And I think we need to get out of the mindset of only thinking, let's help people get jobs. I think we need to start thinking, let's see how we can create jobs, new jobs. Because actually jobs are the only sustainable solution to poverty. I love food banks. We support loads of food feeding programs around the world. Amazing. The family comes and gets a parcel that will last 2 or 3 days. Then what? They need another food parcel. But what? What if we could help people facing economic hardship to start a small business? It creates the possibility of lasting, sustainable change. And we should never despise small things. Moses only had a staff. The widow only had a small jar of olive oil. Gideon only had a small army. The boy only had 5 small loaves. The farmer only had a handful of seed. I mean, the Bible is absolutely shot through with examples of us offering a little and God making a lot out of it. So we should never despise the small. Amazon, $1 trillion business. Where did it start? A garage in California. Imagine what small businesses could start that could not only look after one family, but have the potential to create jobs for other families across a community. Anyway, I wrote a little article for the Times newspaper, which I write for now and again, as I mentioned, about this. And I received an overwhelming response, like no article I've ever written before. And the following week, I sat there on the sofa in my kitchen one Sunday morning and I got a download for a book. And it was basically 7 steps to start a small business, written for local churches to use, to help them, to enable them to help people in their congregations and in their communities go through the steps of starting a small business. We pioneered it in a church in the UK last May, and as a result, 4 small businesses were launched. The Times newspaper came back to us and they ran another story. They ran a double-page spread about these businesses in the business, not in the faith section, in the business section of the newspaper. This last month, 22 churches in the UK have started what is now called the Enterprise Course, to enable them to help people facing economic hardship start a small business. The book, in 12 months, has been published in 6 languages, and there are several more imminent to be published. And we have churches in Spain and France, the Philippines, and here in South Africa. I just spoke to a guy last night. He said, I'm going to run this in my church. We want to start the enterprise course to help people create lasting change, a lasting solution to poverty. And in the UK alone, our national leader there, Jeff, is going to help 120 churches start the enterprise course. And if all of them only help 4 small businesses start, that's 480 small businesses. So one of my big milestones is we're going to create a global marketplace of small businesses. So you can go online and use their services and they can promote their services. So I say these things because sometimes God can even use a prime minister to inspire an idea, and even use an ass like me, an uneducated dropout of school, even use me, the people who work with the amazing team that work with me, even use us to do something incredible that transforms not only our immediate world, but actually the whole world. I just wanted to reiterate where I began, which is to say to you, don't limit your thinking. I've had a tough couple of years, and I know it's difficult. I've struggled. Don't limit what Jesus might be able to do through you. There are no limits. There are no constraints on what he can do. I'd love us to chat now, but also I'd love you to reach for your phones. Go on Instagram. I hope you're on Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, go on Facebook. I like both, but it's a slight favoritism for Instagram. And I'd love to invite you to follow me, because then we can talk. You may think, oh, I fancy writing a book, Matt. Okay. We can talk about a course starting on the 2nd of March. Or you may think, wow, I'd love my church actually to connect with Neighbour South Africa. I'd love to connect with our national leader here, Lee Moyo. So find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook. Now, my handle is this, Matt Bird Speaker. I know it's difficult. It's an easy one, Matt Bird Speaker. Please follow me, please engage on Facebook or Instagram, message, and I can always then connect you with people who can help you. Thank you very much.
So Matt's got a little bit of time. He is going to be dashing to the airport, but we wanted to open up a bit of time for some question and answer. We are willing to take questions from Gauteng as long as you guys behave. So if you have a question, you can maybe indicate to Natalie, and she can raise her hand. So prepare your question. I'm going to ask a well, it's a quick question to ask, because maybe not such a quick question to answer. But I'm guessing you've inspired some budding authors here this morning, and you've whet the appetite. I know that you can't give us the 5-course meal, but can you give us a hint at some of those steps, at least even if it's the beginning?
Sure. Anybody here think maybe one day they might want to write a book? Oh, wow. Yeah, there we go. Okay. At least 5 or 6. Wonderful. And Gauteng? I know I can't see you, but just give us a little wave. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you very much. The Writing My Book course lasts 100 days. There are 8 75-minute sessions online. And I literally walk you from session 1, which is all about overcoming self-limitations. We don't write a word in the first session. It's all about dealing with the inner mental blocks to writing. And also working out our why. Thank you so much. Working out our why, because why do you want to write a book? And it's so important to determine your why before you put pen to paper. Second session, we begin to look at who are you writing the book for? What's your core message? how's it going to help them? Session 3, I teach a content creation strategy that I've used on every single one of my books, and I use every time I write an article or every time I give a keynote speech. It's invaluable. And you may think, Matt, I can never write a book. Trust me, you can. You have got so much content inside you, your book is already written. But I will teach you strategies to get those ideas and that content out of yourself and begin to capture it. I'll give you a template that you can use to create the entire outline of your book that you'll then use as a pathway. I will coach you every step of the way. We will look at what are the publishing options available to you. And I'll make any introduction you like to other publishers, or you can come with us because we can turn it around in 3 months. If you go to a traditional publisher, you're looking at a date at least 12 months out. But I'll look at all the options. We'll also then finally will help you look at how you take your book to the world. Because publishing a book doesn't mean you sell a book. And once you're published, you can join our authors club. Anybody that's been through our course that publishes their book joins our authors club. We've got people from Australia, South Africa, UK, around the world who have become published authors through this course. And we're committed to helping one another put legs on our books and market them to the world. So we do all this in 100 days, 8 75-minute sessions on Zoom, plus supported by a 24/7 WhatsApp chat where you can ask any questions you like. My last cohort that finished the course, 6 out of 10 participants completed their manuscript during the course. 6 out of 10. So if you're interested, please, look at coffeewithmatt.com, click on the little link about writing my book course, connect with me through @MattBirdSpeaker on Instagram or Facebook. And I've got people buying places on the course that starts on the 2nd of March this week. So all the places will be gone soon, but if you're interested, come back to me. Any other questions?
Questions from Gauteng.
Good day, can you hear me?
I'll take that. Gobsmacked. Oh, great.
Hello, Matt. I have a question here from Johannesburg.
They can hear you. You can continue.
Matt, my question is, when you tackle your projects, be it the book or the initiatives in the community, how do you tackle these initiatives within small teams beyond just doing everything yourself? That's what I would like to know.
I think the question was, how do you ensure that you don't do everything yourself?
Yes.
And this is the beauty of local churches running community projects. Because a local church isn't an individual, it is a community. And good pastors, the pastors that do everything burn out, but the pastors who build growing churches build teams. This team, that team, the other team. And so the only way to run sustainable community initiatives is by building a team of volunteers. And I preached at my own church 2 weeks ago. Last week I was preaching in Cape Town. The week before that was my home church in London. And I had a call at the end, not a call to prayer at the front, but a call to action. And I invited people, could you get out your mobile phone and text 1 hour to this number? So I said, there's nobody that can't give 1 hour somewhere in their lives. Some people give 1 hour voluntary a day. Some give 1 hour voluntary a week. Some people give 1 hour voluntary a fortnight. Some people give 1 hour voluntary a month. None of us have the excuse not to volunteer somewhere. And it's the power of these 1 hours that add up, and make these community projects possible. It doesn't matter how small your church is, how under-resourced you feel. If you add up the 1 hours, it can make a transforming difference in a community, but it can never be based on one person. And that's the beautiful, sustainable thing about local churches running a community project, because it's part of their life and mission and worship together as the body of Christ. Another question. One here. Michelle.
How does neighbour come alongside churches? As we said, they copy best practices. What would your South African person, and also for us as a community radio station, I mean, this is ideally what we should be doing, is we could be giving all the churches to belong to neighbour, so that our whole footprint is transformed. To mobilize that on air to get churches, other churches.
Yeah.
But what would neighbour offer?
Yeah. So I think community radio stations like yours and others and Neighbour have the same mission. But we have different tools. You have a platform, we have content. And what we want to do is to communicate and inspire the local churches with tried and tested approaches that we know work. So there's a great opportunity and synergy for partnership. So how does Neighbour come alongside a local church? That was your initial part of your question. We believe in coming alongside. We never do 2 or 4. The divine strategy is one of alongside God, the paraclete, the one who comes alongside. So we come alongside, and we have lots of tools in our tool bag that can help churches. One of them helps local churches discern what Jesus might want them to do in their community. And we provide a biblical, prayerful process for churches discerning what Jesus might want them to do. Secondly, we create a menu of projects. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. What a waste of resources and a waste of time, let alone the risk of it not working. It's a brand new thing. What if you had a menu, and that's what Neighbour provides. We provide a menu of tried and tested best practice projects run by other churches. So put your logo and ego to one side and take somebody else's idea, a kingdom idea, and run that in your local community by your church. So they're very, very practical, tangible resources. Those are just 2 of them. A tool to help you discern what Jesus might want you to do, and a menu of ideas that you can choose from, rather than reinventing the wheel or wasting resources, creating something new that might fail anyway. These things are tried and tested. We know they work. Great question, Michelle. Thank you. Is there anything else from Hate, or should we go for another question here?
So it's all about another question.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
Please.
Thank you. It's not good to
No.
Hi.
It's not
Hi, you can.
but I just thankful being able to attend this meeting, because I meant to write my book many times. One point I'd already started in the office on fire in my laptop battery, and it wasn't safe anywhere. So I'm sitting here and I'm saying thank you, Lord. I think this is about time. So I'm looking forward to joining you.
Thank you. If you go to coffeewithmatt.com, the bottom button is WhatsApp Matt. You can WhatsApp me personally, and I'll send you a link today with information about the course. Thank you.
There is a question from Gauteng. I think we can hear you. Just say something, we'll check.
Morning, Matt. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I've come off camera so I can hear you.
Good morning. My name is JJ. I'm part of the Body of Christ movement in South Africa, where a lot of churches is combining, taking hands, making a difference in the communities. I think my question is there any projects in South Africa already or currently available that is already working, making an impact in the community that can be represented to the houses of the Lord or the local churches?
So the question was, is there already a menu of church-led community projects available in South Africa that are tried and tested and working in churches in South Africa? The answer is yes. What I'd love to do, again, is to connect you to Lee Moyo, our national leader based here in South Africa, and he can send you that menu of church-led community projects as soon as you reach out to us. Maybe the best thing to do is if you just go to coffeewithmatt.com, WhatsApp me or send me a message, and I'll connect you to Lee, and you can have that information within 24 hours. Great question, thank you.
Maybe as a follow-up to that, as you've traveled around the world, and I don't know what the major footprint is, kind of mentioned countries. What have been some of the major contrasts where, so to his question, this is going to work. We need the South African solution because it's different from a UK or Australia. What have you found? Just to
Our world is so diverse, and every country has unique history, unique identity, but those countries themselves are also equally diverse and complex. And I think traveling as I do, I was just saying to my new friend here, so it's from Germany. I said, I was in Berlin 2 weeks ago. You know, as I travel around the world, yes, there are different languages and different cultures, so many differences, but human need remains human need. And the greatest human need I see is for love. It's for love. It's love in action. It's actually what Jesus invites us to do, to love God and love our neighbour as we love ourselves. That is the greatest human need I see. And that, I don't know if it sits under or sits above culture, but it's common everywhere I go. And that is a great opportunity for the global church, isn't it? That's our mandate, that's our mission. And we do it so beautifully. But boy, can we do more? Can we make an even greater impact? You know, some of the countries, and I'm not going to name any countries, but some of the countries with the highest level, the highest percentage of Christians and the highest levels of church attendance are also some of the countries with the highest levels of corruption, domestic violence, child abuse, gun crime. So why are some of the places where there's more Christians than anywhere else, with more church attendance than somewhere else, than other places, why do they also have actually the highest levels of some of these social atrocities? There's something wrong. Something wrong. There's too much private members club Christianity. And we need more churches, like some of the incredible churches I meet here in South Africa, who are on the ground involved, loving their communities and getting their hands dirty with people, crying with people, laughing with people, walking alongside people. That's what we need.
Can I ask you, do you ever have to struggle with managing your time so you don't personally get burned out? I mean,
Yeah.
how do you
So the question was, Matt, how do you manage your time so you don't get burnt out? I haven't, but I should do. But on my writing my book course, I teach something that I'm going to share with you today, because one of the obstacles people face to writing a book is, I haven't got enough time. Now, those of you that have sat there thinking, I've got a book in me, I want to write a book. And as you sat there, oh, it's okay. The reason I haven't written my book is I haven't got enough time. I want to say to you, there's no such thing as a lack of time. There's no such thing as a lack of time. There is only a lack of priorities. If I was to look at your diary, not just what you've written in it, but what actually happens in your week, I can tell what your priorities are. And you can tell what my priorities are. And we might say we want to do something, but we expect just be given, we expect to create it. How do you create time? You can't create time. God creates time. He's given us the gift of time. We can't make more of it, create more of it. There's no such thing as a lack of it. We have the perfect amount of time. but have we prioritized our time? Frankly, if you want to write a book with me, I will. We spend the first. We meet weekly for the first month, putting all the foundations in place, and then I fire the starting pistol, and you write. And in months 2 and 3, from the very beginning of the course, I brief people. You need to set aside a minimum of 60 hours to write your book in months 2 and 3. If it's a priority, do you know what happens? People, they take a Sabbath from Netflix. They go to bed at 9:30, get up at 4:30 and write for 2 hours before family gets up. It's a priority. Or they use some of their annual holiday to take a couple of weeks off of work. Or they engage to support their families. And they say, look, I'm writing a book. For 2 months, can you help me out? I'm not doing any cooking, cleaning, washing up, changing your beds. Can the rest of you do that for me for 2 months? So mum or dad can write a book. Engage them as a team. And frankly, reprioritizing is a great excuse to give up some things you've always wanted to give up. You're probably doing things in your life now you'd rather you weren't doing, and you'd really love to give them up. Why don't you write a book? It's the perfect excuse to say to people, I'm sorry, I can't do this anymore, I'm writing a book. So it's a beautiful question about time. I could say a lot more about it, but there's no such thing as a lack of time, only lack of priorities. And whether it's a book or something else in your life, if you really, really want to do it, you won't make the time because you can't. God makes time, but you will prioritize the time. I hope that's helpful.
There's another counting question. You can go for it. You know.
Good morning, Matt. Thanks so much for your contribution. We really appreciate it. It's Kunda from TBN Africa. When you talk about these community projects, may you kindly share maybe 1 or 2 which you've maybe run, and how do you monitor and evaluate those projects? Because that's where sometimes we fail, because we establish a project, but then 2 years down the line, there's no sustainability and there's no one to really take care of that for those kind of projects. So what's your experience in terms of setting up this project?
Okay, I think the question was, how do you measure a project and how do you make it sustainable? If I can ask the second, what I think was the second question first. How do you make a project sustainable? Well, if it's independent from the church, it's very difficult to make sustainable. However, one of the reasons that Neighbour advocates the role of the local church is because when a local church runs it, it's automatically sustainable. Because a community project becomes part of the life and mission of the local church. That is, unless all the local church is interested in is preaching, praising and praying. If it's only interested in a private members club, it will never make a community project its priority, or it will be sustainable. But where a local church is holistic and is pursuing a gospel of the kingdom of God, it becomes part of its life and mission. Not all the money of the church gets spent on the employed team or on the building, because actually those are not the most important things. Actually, you can also tell quite a lot from a diary. You can actually tell quite a lot from a bank statement about what a church prioritizes. But we believe that the local church provides sustainability for community work, because people give to the family of the church. Not just the church can serve them with particular benefits, but so the church can engage in their local community. Your first part of the question was actually about measurement. So we have two things on this, and I don't want to bore people, but we have qualifying criteria. So to become a Neighbour recognised project is not like falling off a log. There are 7 key criteria by which we assess church-led community projects. And our national leader, Lee Moyo, here in South Africa, he has to present that project to our board, and we have to sign it off. So there's an evaluation from day one, looking at these 7 best practice criteria that we look for in church-led community projects. We are also developing some outcome measurements. It's very easy to measure output, how many volunteers, how many beneficiaries, but actually outcomes are a lot harder to measure. So we are developed a framework where there are 3 output measurements, qualitative output measurements. that we encourage local churches to use in measuring the impact of what they do in the community. I won't go into the detail of those now, but again, those are available and they're in, I can't remember which of my books, but if you reach out to us, I will signpost you to the place where you can find out more. Thank you.
The last question. I think we can take one more. Burning question. Opportunity going.
Go. Just to say, Natalie here is our board secretary for Neighbour South Africa. So she's also someone who can signpost you to lead or in the right direction if you want help with any of this. But please do follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I really want to connect with you, and you can find out about all that I do through coffeewithmatt.com. Whether it's Neighbour, writing my book, the books I've written, my little holiday place in Italy that you might be able to go to, or anything like that, I'd love to connect. Thank you.
Well, another huge thank you, Matt. Thanks for being available. Thank you for your time and for your efforts. And it's quite diverse. I think a little bit on if you want to write a book and those involved in community projects and how do we engage the local church. So a very wide menu of topics that you hit today, which means that somebody's taken something away for sure. And thanks for being available to answer those questions as well. So thanks for your time as well and coming, and Gauteng, you guys connecting. I think what's going to happen now from a Gauteng perspective is that the connection moment is now gone. We're going to get to hang with Matt all on our own and ask all the other questions we have. But you guys can sign out. So thanks for coming. I hope you guys have a wonderful time. You can shout and wave and say goodbye. And we might not hear you, but what we're yeah, it's something. And then what we're going to on this side is have our
I think we basically